Hello and welcome to the NARFE Configuration Advisory Board tutorial series for the Association Management System Database, or AMS. Today we will walk through creating a new Federation Officer and updating the Federation Officer roster. NARFE chapters and federations should update their officer rosters and officer information whenever there's a change. But if nothing has changed between elections, it's always good to review and verify this information on an annual basis, certainly by the beginning of the new year in January. In the NARFE Association Management System, only a key Federation officer may update the Federation officer roster. Key Federation officers include the Federation President, the First Vice President, the Federation Secretary, Secretary-Treasurer, and Membership Chair. If you hold one of these positions, you will see a secondary menu consisting of a set of oval buttons below the dashboard menu bar. We'll look at that in a moment. As a key officer, if you do not see that secondary menu bar, contact NARFE at narfrecords@narfe.org or it@narfe.org, including your name as it appears on the roster, your ID number, your officer positions, and also a brief description of the problem. In addition to being able to update and download information, these officers, along with the legislative chair, the network coordinator, and the newsletter editor, also have access to the NARFE email system, NES, and the NARFE-hosted websites. All Federation officers can view membership information. Once you are logged in, go to the main NARFE menu at the top of the page and select Officer Portal. This will take you to the Federation dashboard. The Federation dashboard has two menus. The main menu, which consists of 6 buttons, and a secondary menu that consists of 6 buttons plus 2 hold buttons for future functions. This is the menu. If you do not see this secondary menu, try selecting Federation Dashboard one more time. If it doesn't appear, then contact NARFE. Non-key officers may not see any of the oval buttons unless they hold a position such as Chapter Network Coordinator for web hosting, editor, or legislative position. The functions that used to be found under the F7A report are now accomplished by 3 buttons and different screens, including the Add Federation Officer, the Federation Officers button, and an Update Federation button. Changes enter the database immediately, but may take overnight for all changes to propagate through the entire system before you see them. Select the Add Federation Officer button. This will take you to a form where you can search for a particular Federation member's information. Note, always add officers first to avoid removing a key officer who can make updates. Type in the name of the member that you want to create as an officer. I suggest using the last name only, as too much information seems to confuse the database. and then select Search. This form searches for both chapter and national-only members because national-only members can serve as Federation officers. This will produce a list of names for you to choose from. Select the name of the officer that you want to create and then hit the select button all the way on the right. This will open another form where you can select the position title and start and end dates of that officer's term. The officer's name should be pre-filled in the selected member text box. The Select Title and Term section is below the member's name. You can select the title from the drop-down list link on the right. The blue link here will provide this particular drop-down menu. However, Federation positions do not generally show up, so you will need to begin to type the word Federation for Federation officer positions to show in this drop-down form. And it must begin with the word Federation. Position codes are not automatically assigned in AMS, though NARFE and the vendor are working on this. Otherwise, you would be able to select a position code number, but that's not available now. You can also type in the word Federation, and it should provide you with a few additional positions. Once you assign a member as president or secretary, they have the appropriate access rights in AMS. However, there may be some latent activity associated with the legacy database until the position codes are assigned by NARFE headquarters. If the position code does not appear after 24 hours of creating your new officer, contact NARFE at memberrecords@narfe.org or IT@narfe.org. Below the drop-down menu are the boxes for selecting the beginning and end of term. That's this little icon right here, and it will produce this kind of a little calendar. It is easiest to use the calendar function along the right side to select dates. It defaults to today's date. Selecting the calendar function allows you to post-date a change in the terms of office or to predate a term of office. If your officer, let's say they took office on the 1st of August, or on the 1st of July, then you would use this back button that goes back in time to the previous calendar for July and then select the date that they started. If you have your elections in November and your officers take position in January, you can select the button to the right of the year to go forward in time and select that start date for your new officer. Another way to do this is to select the month and the year in the center of the calendar, which will provide you with a list of various months of the year and a group of years that you can select from to make the assignment. You can also add a note about the addition of this new officer or change to the officer in the comments box. I usually add election information or a previous office holder stepped down, moved, or passed away. Something to indicate why this person is taking this position, especially if it is taken out of the cycle of the election. When this is completed, go down to the Save button and save your work. Your new officer will appear on your list either immediately if their terms have already started, or on the date when their term begins. However, it may take 24 hours for the addition of this officer to propagate through all of the servers and be available to everyone. Remember, if they are unable to access the functions that they are authorized for by their title and position, contact NARFE at memberrecords@narfe.org and IT@narfe.org, including your name as it appears on the roster, your ID number, the officer position that is in question, and a brief description of the problem. Now we're going to update a Federation officer, which means you need to select the fourth button on the main menu, the Federation Officers button. This will produce a list of all of your Federation officers. This is just an abbreviated list. What you do is you select the name of the officer that you want to edit. And this will open up the Update Federation Officer form. You see on the bottom all of the positions that the officer has held with their start date and term end date. And the term start and end for this particular position is in the right box. This term started in May 21st, 2020 and will end on May 21st, 2022. However, my federation has decided to move their elections to the fall, so that date is going to change to a September or October 2022. And once again, we would use the calendar to make that change. The calendar function is the easiest way to do that. Elections for key chapter officers occur annually according to a calendar year, in most chapters at least. So set the term end date a year ahead. In other words, a term that would end perhaps December 31st, 2022, or set it for 1 to 2 months after the actual term expires to allow ample time to make changes to your Federation officer list, especially during the busy holiday season when we don't really have a lot of time to make changes, to pay attention to this kind of thing. So you want to give yourself a little leeway to get your officer roster updated. Once you've completed that, select the Save button. Always save your work. With the AMS, the database can support more than 2 officers in the same position as long as they do not overlap for key officers specifically. So that do not overlap terms such that an existing president's term ends on December 31st, and the new president's term begins on January 1st. In the database on January 1st, the past president, whose term ended the day before, will drop from view on the officer roster, and the new president will replace them in the NARFE database and on the officer roster list. Their authorization to make changes to the database, their position code, should be assigned already to that new officer so that there is no break in the ability to function. One last word on term overlap. If you have multiple key officer positions that overlap, this could disrupt official communication such as NARFE notifications, deposit notices, etc. So try to avoid overlapping start and end dates for key officers especially. And now we're going to talk about updating your Federation information. This information appears at the top of your Federation dashboard. And this allows you to, if you select in the second button in the secondary menu area, which says Update Information, it allows you to provide a Federation main address. Perhaps your secretary or president will accept snail mail to their address for the Federation, so you put that information in here. And you can also add the Federation website URL or the Federation Facebook URL. Once again, you want to save your work. This concludes the tutorial on updating your Federation officer roster and modifying existing Federation officers' information. We hope that you found this useful. If you have any comments or questions about this tutorial or any problems that you might have with AMS, please contact your regional CAB representative. We thank you for your attention, and we'll see you next time.